Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Whalen from RPI Consultants. I want to thank you for taking the time to attend our webinar, Basking in Global HR. We have two terrific presenters today, Ms. Melissa Olson and Ms. Jackie Dudas.
Thank you, Keith. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for attending the presentation today. Today we're going to be going over some differences between S3 and Global HR.
So hopefully there are a few of you joining us today that were at the Southeast Mega. We started this presentation, we got about halfway through it, and we ran out of time. So we will be covering the same beginning slides, but there's a lot more content that you missed out. If not, welcome to everybody else. It's got a lot to cover today. So what I want to go over first is just some basic terms of Global HR. If you are new to the product, if you just don't know too much about it, or if you haven't seen it in a few years, it's changed a lot since the early versions, version 3.4.2 and even version 10. So what Global HR comprises, just out of the box, the core functionality is going to be your organizational structure, your jobs, positions, your supervisory structure, your resources, your employees, all of that is out of the box. The other modules that come with Global HR are going to be your position budgeting, your employee relations, health management or occupational health, employee safety, benefits, and absence, which are now in your HCM, your S3 HCM system. They've now been developed for the Landmark platform. They have very similar. Everything works exactly the same, but you've got a little bit more functionality in the new version. I'll hit on some of the absence management things today, not too much on the benefits yet. There's going to be a lot more COBRA processing coming up, and as soon as that is live, we'll update our presentation. And then finally, the time entry module, which replaces the old time and attendance. So not your absence management, but something a little bit smaller for just exception-based management. And then we'll get into some of the tooling and extensions, I guess more of the technical side of the system. We'll talk about the globalizations, which brings all of your employees into a global workforce, all of the localizations, everything to truly track employees all over the world. And then we'll talk about some of the self-services and how those differ from what you've got today in the S3 system.
So Global HR, which Melissa just touched on, it's in the name, Global HR. It supports a global workforce. So that means, let me see if I can get all this animation up. Okay, I think that's everything. So it supports a global workforce. So what that means is that if you have employees that work in Canada or Mexico or anywhere outside of the United States, you have the option to hold multiple currencies on each employee. So if they're working in both locations and they need to get paid in Canadian dollars and US dollars, you can do that. You can also choose to push the language that the employee is seeing either in the rich client itself or on employee space in the language that they choose. So if they're stronger in one language or that's their home country and they want to see it in Spanish instead, you can push that out to them as well. And that is role-based, so you can push that out by the security role that the employee has.
Okay, one of the biggest misconceptions is this is an integrated system, and by integrated I mean integrated with S3, the data flows back and forth freely and easily. This is an interfaced system. The reason being, we're going to get into some of the more technical differences, but it's a completely different platform. The environment is different, the programming language is different, the database structure is different. Because of that, you can't really integrate the data. You have to do a lot of mapping and interfacing and pushing of your core data from your Global HR system into your S3 system for processing of payroll. And if you're still running benefits or absence management in there, all of that would be interfaced into Global HR. So again, they are two separate systems, but there is some federation for allowing for single sign-on. So if you're using Employee Space, and this is your employee self-service portal in Global HR, and your employee has to do benefits enrollment, or they want to see paychecks or PTO balances, all of which is held in your S3 system, there are viewers, so they don't see the difference. They log into one portal, and they're able to do everything they need to do with the Global HR side, and they're able to view everything they need to see from the S3 side without having to log into multiple systems.
So if you just attended our performance and goal presentation, these next couple slides are going to be a rerun, so I apologize for that. But just to bring everybody up to speed on the terminology in each system, I want to talk about some of the structural differences between S3 and Global HR. So in S3, the HR11, the employee record that everybody knows and loves, in Global HR, that's going to become your resource record. So it's going to hold all that information for your employee, but it can also hold information for any other resources that you want to track within the system. So for example, if you track volunteers or contractors or anyone, even people that you might not want on your payroll, but you want to make sure you contain information about them, you can now use that resource record to track everyone. And you can specify whether they are an employee or a contract worker or a temporary worker, that any different type of resource that would be within your organization.
And they could stay in the Global HR system and not be interfaced into the S3 system for going into your payroll system.
Exactly, yeah. Next, we're going to talk about the company, process level, and department. So that's your organization structure in S3. In Global HR, those terms become organization and organization unit. So your company maps to your organization, and then your process level and department are going to map to your organization unit. And basically how that works is you can still have multiple levels of organization units, kind of like a process level and the department underneath of it, but you can specify that within your organization unit. So that actually allows you to open up many more levels. You don't just have to have the 3-level company, process level, department. You can have sub-departments, you can have little divisions that report to your departments or to your process levels. So it allows for much more flexibility when you're building that structure. In addition, you can actually literally drag and drop if you're ever doing a reorg or a restructure. You can select that organizational tree and drag and drop it under a different organization. So it's a very quick way. The defaults come all the way down through the levels. It's a very quick way to reorg if you need to do that. Your job and position, so you are still going to set up jobs and positions in Global HR, but when they get assigned to the employee, they're going to become the work assignment. So when you're looking at the employee profile, when you're looking at the resource record, it's going to say work assignment. They can have multiple work assignments broken out by FTE, similar to S3, but it shows you everything that they have on one screen on the resource profile, rather than having to use the HR11 and then jumping to the PA13. Status, in Global HR, it becomes 3 different items that kind of all work together to explain how the employee is utilized within your organization. So the 3 pieces in Global HR are your relationship to org, which is part-time, full-time, that sort of thing. The relationship status, which is active, inactive, that sort of thing. And then work type, which is whether they're a volunteer or an employee or a contractor. Supervisor is a really neat change between S3 and Global HR. In S3, you just had your main supervisor, and then you had your indirect supervisor. In Global HR, the main supervisor becomes the direct supervisor role, and then you also have the opportunity to blow out a lot more supervisors for one employee. So if you have supervisors that only need to see part of the resource record, maybe not the pay rate, they need to run appraisals for an employee, or approved time, you can specify each of those supervisors to do those actions for that employee. It's security based, so you would just need to assign those different roles to each supervisor, and then they are able to take action on or view things for each employee. You're not just limited to that one supervisor and then your indirect supervisor as you are in S3. Couple functional differences here. So your personal actions that you know and love in S3 now become action requests in Global HR. There's a set of delivered action requests in Global HR. All your basic actions that you would need. Infor kind of collected all the things that a lot of organizations are doing, hire, rehire, term.
We got a slide that is going to kind of list all of them actually that are out of the box.
Yep. Yeah. So those are all delivered. You can add more if you need them, but you're pretty much going to call them actions in either place, so that's not a hard one to get used to.
And to add more, you just use your IPA tool, your import process automation.
Yep.
This is built in that same technology.
Yep. And these do have approval levels on the back end built in that we'll go over a little bit later too. Your self-services in in S3 are now your spaces. And then did you say they were moving back to
self-service again, and it's not only going to be just for employee and manager, but you'll have like a generalist self-service or an administration self-service. So it's just kind of the terminology. So they might be a little interchangeable for the next few years.
Luckily, they're a little self-explanatory. So we're going to be referring to the employee and manager self-services as spaces in this presentation because that's what it is right now in version 11. Your employee groups in S3 now become custom groups in Global HR. Basically, in employee groups, you set them up in one place. You had to precede the code with BN, LP, HR. Here, you can specify the custom groups for each module that you want to be using these groups in. So they're completely broken out. You don't have to worry about updating them per module. You can just use it use it in the module that you are in. Your HR10 was your data item attributes in S3. That's where you set up your history, whether you wanted to track your history or not for some items. You don't have to worry about that in Global HR. The audit log is going to track everything that happens in the system. So there's two different audit logs in Global HR. There's the regular just audit log, and then there's the full audit log. And the regular tracks everything, and then the full also tracks everything, but in addition, it tracks any reversals. So if you reverse an action, it's going to show the original action, and then that with a line through it, crossed out, and then the reversal beneath that to show that this was actually reversed and reverted back. You didn't really have that in S3. It just kind of, depending on the method that you used to reverse it, it just kind of either took it away or moved it to history error. So now you do have that option to see that when you need to. And then the as of date, nothing like this existed in S3, but in Global HR, there's this awesome feature called as of date, where you can set the system to a certain date either in the past or in the future, and you can get a snapshot of what your system, what your employees, your whole organization will look like at that date in the future. So a great example that Melissa used when we gave this presentation a couple days ago is for health systems. If you are expecting a bunch of residents to come on in a few months, and you've already got them hired into the system, but it's not effective until a future date over the summer,
July, yeah.
You can roll it forward and see who all will be there, what your workforce will look like at that point, how many more people have come onto the system.
So you can prep for your orientations and whatever you need to bring them on board. And same is true back. If you need to do some turnover reporting, so you can set the date for August of 2015, and as of that date, you can key in your resource record and see a person who is now terminated. You would see they're active. You can run a report and say, what's my head count for today? August 12th of 2015. So it's really nice function to be able to report and for that point in time inquiry that you may need on some of your employees.
Yeah. Another change within Global HR is you're not going to have to worry about smart coding anymore. So before this, these are two different screenshots here. The top one is a position record screenshot from S3, and right below we have the position record coding in Global HR. So before you'd have to worry about like MGR, process level 3, department 06915. You'd have to jam that all into your 12 characters of your position code. And then you were even limited in the character amount that you had for the description as well. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. You still can use it. I think we got a question last time we did the presentation where people said,
downstream, you need it to connect, maybe with Kronos or other systems that are already using that. So
so you still can include that. But basically, when you add a position, it's going to, like you see, this is position number 43 right here. It's going to just assign it the next number in line. So you could have a position 1, you could have a position 1000. But here we have 43, and the short description, we have physician assistant, long description, physician assistant. But you now have much more expanded capability for your descriptions here. Short description is going to be 30 or 32 characters, and then your long description is 60 or 64. We can't remember whether if you have at least 30 and at least 60. Sorry, a little human error here. But this is going to work for your jobs, your positions, and your supervisor structure. It's all going to use the organization assigned number instead of a code. Here's some different reporting that you have. So on this side is your S3 reporting, and on this side is your Global HR reporting. You can already see there's just a lot more included in Global HR. One of the neat new reporting tools is the cube, which allows for kind of two-dimensional reporting. Big plus there is your turnover analysis. So this can show you bar graphs of starters and leavers. And I actually just worked as an HRIS interim manager at a company. I had to do this huge report on all the starters and leavers over the years with bar graphs. And if I had Global HR at my hands, I could have had it do that automatically in half an hour. So a lot of reporting capabilities. We have some slides coming up with fit analysis that shows you like a chart. You'll see how slick the system is with its reporting. In addition, we have everything within the system is exportable as a list. So if you're as a manager, you've logged in and you're looking at your direct reports, if you just wanted to export that as a list of people that report to you, you can click on these little chevrons in the top right and export it to a list and just have that in front of you immediately. You can also move around the column headers for that if you need to. You can add more, remove things. If you need to add a pay rate because you want to see that in line with your direct reports, you can do that too.
So a lot of you that may use Smart Office now, same sort of functionality that at your desktop you can configure what you need to see for your job and makes it easy for you without some sort of globalization going out to everyone to make changes.
Right. Spreadsheet Designer is going to take the place of your MS add-ins. It works essentially the same. There's a difference on the back end where instead of hitting your database tables, you're going to be hitting business classes. So you're going to have to get used to where fields live or reside in the database on the back end and system. Instead of using your Control-Shift-O to find that, you're going to do Control-Shift-Click. So similar. And again, you're going to build that in Microsoft Excel. It's just slightly different user interface. The queries and uploads save directly on the sheet itself. So when you open a sheet, your query or your upload is going to open with it as well. And then Configuration Console, I won't steal too much of Mr. Stout's thunder for his presentation this afternoon at 3, but basically you can use Configuration Console to build even more reports if you need to see, build different headers on your reports to export your lists as well.
Yeah, let's get into some of the technical differences. So I talked about that a little bit in the beginning. Everything's completely different. The reason being is Landmark is built, and the programming languages that they selected were really built for agility. Before, when you wanted to put in an enhancement request, it would go in through Lawson or Infor, and maybe a year from now you would see the change, probably not. It was a very difficult, clunky system to try and change logic out with the old COBOL programming. So they are now using Lawson pattern language, and also it's kind of like a hybrid of a Java and JavaScripting and some other languages that are a little more modern. And it allows for, you'll notice if anybody out there is already on Global HR or they're in the middle of implementation, you'll notice that the versions keep getting updated. Almost every other week there's patches and new versions and updates. And that is because they're hearing the feedback from clients and testers and people who are live on it now and saying, okay, this is an issue, let's turn around and let's get it changed, let's update the logic behind it, and let's push the update out. So that agility and that flexibility, in order to do that, they had to completely change the back end of the way the system was developed. So before it was a 4GL COBOL base, which meant to do any kind of customizations, you needed IT support. You needed somebody who knew COBOL, you needed somebody who knew the XML, the JavaScript, any of kind of the front end stuff to be able to make custom programs, to develop custom programs. Even your 834 to go out to your vendors was all custom. Now there's Configuration Console, which Richard at 4 will talk a lot about what kind of stuff you can do with Configuration Console, but that really touches just the presentation layer. It doesn't touch the logic behind your system at all. So Infor supports it, and you have a lot more at your fingertips as an HRIS person as opposed to having to go to IT to do some stuff. There is areas, some builders, condition builders in there that you can get a developer to put a lot of different logic and programming in, but as a regular everyday user, the tool works for just HR person, HRIS type of person to remove labels or remove fields, add fields, change labels. Your security changes again, sorry. So there is, wait, back. Well, we're going to go into that, but so, oh man, spoiler alert, you're going to see how
Sorry, trigger finger.
The security, LS security is no longer working for global HR. It still works for S3. So you're still going to be moving stuff over to your payroll system, your absence system. You still need to maintain your LS security for your users that will need payroll access. But your global HR security is housed, your landmark security is housed in your global HR administrator. And there are specific roles that are delivered and can be configured, and we'll talk about what those roles look like in a sec. Your conversion templates that you're used to using the 500 jobs to upload are not there anymore. You will use import templates, and they pretty much are spreadsheets that map out all of the fields and what they should look like, and usually you'll use a Spreadsheet Designer to load them all up. And Microsoft add-ins, Spreadsheet Designer, Jackie talked about that, very similar. The difference is you're not using a relational database anymore. You're using the business class system that you have to map to. Again, relational database goes away, but the indexing using the business class system is supposed to make everything quicker, make inquiries quicker, reporting quicker. It makes, again, the agility to be able to pull data and load data into the system, because there is a bit of redundancy in where all the fields are. You have a business class, you may have one field that shows up on 10 business classes. So, but no longer needing to have to do joins, because all the fields you need are in one area. So.
Do we have a question?
We have a few questions. This is
Sure.
probably a good time
Sure.
to work through some of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a question or a comment, but you say S3 not equal global HR.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Starting to use turnover.
This is why. This is exactly why S3 is not equal
Not
to
You
equal.
could use like a lesser sign too.
There you go.
Not
Yeah.
equal.
We're starting to use the turnover analysis. However, it looks like the levers table is not pulling all of our levers. Is there another cube that has to run in order to sync the terms up with the levers?
There is a turnover business class, and I forget the exact name of it, but I think it's turnover data business class. If you're not already pulling from that, that should show that should pull the change from the business class. Maybe chat back in if you're not already pulling from that, but it.
Or we could always take that as a follow-up.
Yeah.
That might take a little bit of research.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next one says, does that mean that global HR will be stored in its own database schema, or will it be additional tables in the S3 schema?
No, so what happens is there are some interface programs that bring your data over from global HR. There are LT programs in your version 9. You should be able to type LT if you have security. LT 10, LT 101. All of those programs where you do all of your mapping of what data you want to bring over from your global HR system into your S3 system. So essentially, when that data comes over, it will go back into your relational database, that same schema. But those business classes over in global HR are completely different, and that is kind of where all the global HR data lives initially. Every field cannot be mapped to come over. I mean, I guess it could. You could use a process flow and build an interface to bring every single thing over if you want to kind of have your systems completely synced. But the stuff that is the fields that are defined on those LT screens are really the only fields that you'll need to process, to do anything in payroll, absence, or benefits. Yep. So, it might be 15 or so fields as opposed to 80 fields where you're used to in a resource record or an HR 11 record.
Anything else?
Yeah, we got a few more. And by the way, the earlier question I think is one of our managed services clients, so they're preparing a ticket for us. In order for managers to export a list via Chevron, do they need a certain security role? Can they do this via HTML5, or do they need to be using rich client?
They can do it in either place, and you say via Chevron. I think we have a screenshot later. We'll show you exactly how that happens. But you can do it in either place. As far as security roles go,
so it's opposite. Everybody gets it, and to lock it down is super hard. So, I've been trying to lock down what managers can see and to backdoor to is a huge thing to be able to test. So if you don't want somebody to be able to export something, it's a little more difficult because that menu can't be configured very easily. It has to be configured with programming language or possibly customized, and not because it's not a delivered menu. You do that chevron and options, and I think it's like print to CSV
or something
like that. But yeah, everybody has that access out of the box to print from any screen based on what screens they're able to see.
So we have here someone that wonders if they missed the conversation about turnover analytics. I don't know if that's something we're going to talk about more again, or if you just want to repeat what you said earlier for the sake of anyone that missed it.
Essentially, let me see if I can go back. Essentially, when we talked about reporting, we just talked about how much more was available in Global HR than there was in S3. Didn't go too much into detail about the turnover analytics, except for that you have a lot of graphing ability. You can do bar graphs and pie charts, and just to get a better picture view. So if you have like your C levels or someone that wants to have a visual view of what is happening in the organization, it's a pretty slick way to report on that and have that available to them.
And that two-dimensional lets you kind of slice and dice your data based on by organization, by quarters, by it's a little easier.
Different time dimensions you can put in there.
Because there is a lot of work going into building those turnover cubes. But
right.
Once you have them built and set up to what you need, then there's a lot more ease.
You can just refresh them, and then they'll re-pull that data for you. Anything else?
All right, that's all the questions we have for now. We'll probably do the same thing, so please keep them coming. When we have a nice set, we'll look for an opportune time to interrupt them, and we'll let them keep going.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So we just touched on the security. Where in LS, you kind of had all of your data elements on the resource manager record. You create, a new user, and you open one screen, and you give them their roles, you give them, some of their security, and then you go over and you assign their identity to them, and maybe you do your LDAP bind on a third screen. In Landmark, there are 6 different, seven-ish? Yeah. So it's generally 6, but then you can, LPA users kind of optional, because not everybody is going to be a process flow or in-basket user. But you have 6 different areas to go to that you have to go into the search box and type in and remember to create all those pieces. It starts off with your actor. Your actor is your user. And then same steps essentially for LS. You assign an identity to them, which is their LDAP. Their agent is going to be what organization and what their employee ID is. So when they open an employee space, they can see their data. Your context property is going to be their default organization. If you have more than one organization or company, you have to define which organization they are a part of. And for HR org unit users, for generalists, if they can only see a certain process level or organization unit, this is where you limit them to which employees they're able to see. And then, of course, their security roles. Are they a manager? Are they an HR generalist? Are they a recruiter? You layer all those. But instead of it being on one screen, it's kind of 5, 6, 7, depending on what all you need to add, different areas that you need to remember to fill out. If it's missing any one of those, except for that LPA user most likely, then your account won't work. Go on. It's a little slow. So out of the box, what kind of security roles come where you're used to in LS security? You kind of go through the exercise of defining, your segregation of duties and building out what your roles are going to be and what classes you put into your roles. Global HR, Landmark security comes with a standard set that they assume most HR departments, because this is only HR at this point, will use. So with that, you would configure based on if you've got a generalist that does compensation and does benefits and does pretty much everything, they will get a lot more security than if you kind of broke out all of those responsibilities across different people. So again, administrator, that's going to be your God access. It's not only going to let you set up and configure all of your structure and organization, it also gives you access to build security, to build or to look at your interfaces, keep an eye on them, the workflow units, make sure everything's processing through to your S3 system, building all of those things, and then your process automation. So any of the action requests that you want to change, you would use the security administrator or the administrator role to go in there and change. So I see we might have a question.
Let's wait till there's a few. Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'll go through here and then I'll take a break if we have a question. Your employee role is what you're used to with your employee self-service currently. Your supervisor. So Jackie was talking about the different levels of supervisors. Comes out with a direct supervisor role. There's an indirect supervisor role. Then you can kind of copy those and change, remove different classes they're on them, so they wouldn't be able to either see certain information or they wouldn't be able to maybe do performance evaluations. And then there's a hiring manager role. If the person is going to be doing any kind of job requisitions with the talent acquisition module, they'll need the hiring manager. This allows them to open requisitions. It allows them to move a candidate through the interviewing and offering process and dispositioning, if you would like your managers to be able to do that once they've selected the candidate they want to make an offer to. So that hiring manager role does give your manager that access. Your generalist can either be similar to the administrator where they can do all of the setup, or if you want one person to do the setup like an HRIS person and your generalist mainly just maintains. This is similar to your HR00, your PAO2, allowing, you don't want too many people to be able to go in there and create structure in your organization. Usually it's just one person, so there's not a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So this is kind of where you'll need to probably create a couple of different generalist roles to allow for that. And then your compensation analyst, if you're using the compensation module, it gives them all the access to set up those compensation plans. And your recruiter gives them access to the candidate space, be able to post jobs, be able to see the recruiter dashboard where at any given day they go in and see what kind of work there is, where their candidates are in the process for each of the requisitions.
Do you want to take the question?
Sure. I was waiting till there were a few,
okay,
but we can go ahead and take this one here.
Sure.
I need a little bit of volume. All right. Yeah, we'll do that later.
Okay, might be a little more complicated potentially.
Here we have, speaking of out of the box, here we have all the out of the box action requests that we talked about a little bit earlier. So I won't read all of these to you, but I'll stall so you can get a good view of the slide. But basically these are all of your S3 actions. These are the delivered action requests that exist in global HR. A lot of things that Infor Notice organizations build already in S3, they built that out for you in global HR. Again, those process flows are already built out in the background for the approval levels. If you need a pay change approved or a promotion or demotion approved, that already exists on the back end there for you. Puppies not included.
So if you have a whole slew of IPA created in S3, sorry again, you can convert some of the stuff. So if you've got a lot of logic, a lot of nodes out there with decision points, you can convert those and put those, not set these up and put your logic on top. Again, because of the different business class system in the back end, the conversion is not super quick and easy, but the logic, again, those nodes that have already been built out, the logic you've defined can be converted over. So just wanted to bring that up. Okay, some differences for employee space. Most of these have deal with the talent management. This presentation is really to highlight the differences between the core out-of-the-box functionality. Talent management modules are extra cost to purchase, extra to license and implement. So we didn't want to spend too much time. Plus, we're doing breakouts like the performance and goal that we did this morning to further highlight the differences in those things. But on employee space or employee self-service, really the differences are going to be, some of the goals and development activities, tracking complete transition tasks. That's a really interesting one because if you've got somebody in your company that is moving to another position outside your department and you have an incumbent that will be taking their job, or at least doing their job until they can find somebody else to fill it, you can assign that employee transition tasks to ensure that they've trained the new person or the incumbent on everything that they do with their job before they move over to their new position. So that's a nice way to be able to track all of that as a manager and as an employee. The self-appraisals and peer appraisals will be out of the performance management module. Access the internal career site and apply for any requisitions. Works only if you're using talent acquisition, talent management module, and and they can apply, and you open it up for internal applicants. So there's a couple of things there that have to happen for them to be able to access it through employee space. And taking notes. We're going to go over taking notes a little bit more in another slide, but it's a really neat feature that allows you in performance management and goal management to kind of keep track of where you are. So a year from now, you can go back through your notes and remember, oh yes, I completed this project 2 weeks early, or I did this and I got kudos for it, and I, copy and paste the email of kudos that I got for that date on the calendar in my notes. Helps a lot with that type of process. Also with employee relations and grievance type processes. So manager self-service versus manager space. Again, almost all of these topics have to do with the external talent module, talent management modules. So talent acquisition, they can create new requisitions. I think we've got a hiring manager dashboard for candidate tracking. The assessment, if you want to put an assessment out to one of the employees you want to interview, hiring manager can do that through talent acquisition. Create offers for new candidates. And then if you go into performance or development, create and track completion for development activities. The learning management system is an external system. Infor has purchased CertPoint and calls it Learning Management System now. So that will be the module that will deliver the training. But if you want to track the courses, or if you offer any kind of internal courses or any other development activities you'd like your employee to do, they would be you can assign those through the development activity piece. So performance, and then there's some compensation things you can do with that module, and mentors. Mentors is out of the box. I think we've got a screenshot a little further down.
My presentations are getting mixed up in my head. We might have a screenshot.
Anytime you watch this presentation, it will always be different because we will change things out and we think of different things. So the mentor module is something that if you do want to develop your employees without the development module, you can assign your employee a mentor, and that mentor can also do performance appraisals. They can assign them different activities, and the employee will be able to see all of that that's assigned to them from their mentor, and the mentor is kind of like a manager space for a person that is not a manager of this employee if they're doing any shadowing activities. Okay.
I have a question. Okay, let me read here. Another question related to reporting and security roles. Do organizations generally grant managers the personalization security role so that they can control the content of lists produced via the Chevron, or is personalization security role usually reserved for HR admins, back office users only?
So personalization roles are usually reserved for your back office. It really won't change what kind of lists they see. Well, I guess they can. There's not a lot you can personalize on the manager space side. The rub with personalization roles is if you do a global configuration that you want to push to all of your back office users and managers and employees or whatever it may be, that will not go out on top of a personalization. So if I have a personalization, everybody else gets a change that HR has pushed out, but I will not see it because my personalization overrides it. So you want to be very careful who you allow to do personalizations, and if you were to run or push out a global configuration, you want to let all the people with personalizations know so they can turn those off, receive the configuration, the global configuration, and then they can reapply any personalizations they have. You have any? Is that Okay. Okay, so proxy for managers. This is a near and dear topic to my heart because for the last 12 plus years that I've been implementing employee and manager self-service, this topic has come up a lot. What happens if I as a manager am on vacation for a couple of weeks and I need other managers to do any kind of actions on my employees, or in modern times have any in-basket approvals to take care of for my employees? So before, you kind of had to rig your supervisory structure. So if somebody was gone, you went into HR07, you put the other manager's ID in HR07. A lot of places would put a calendar reminder to say when that prior manager, the real manager, came back, to go back to HR07 and put them back in there. What that meant is if you did any reporting on your structure, it was incomplete. If you did not remember to change them back, it was, or not incomplete, but incorrect. So that was not a very sustainable way to manage proxy, but really that was the only way to do something like that. Now, it's already been built into the system. There's a role that you assign to the managers if you'd like them to be able to proxy. There's a role you assign to the other person. That other person may not be a manager, but they can receive the proxy to ensure that they can do this. And it's as simple as just going into the Start menu. We can click for the little animations here. They go into their Start menu. They go to the Switch to Proxy setting, and they select whomever is in the list. I could have maybe 3 different managers I might want to proxy to for different things. So I will select myself, or I, as another manager, will select Melissa. And so Emily Ackers is now in the proxy mode for me. So she logs into self-service or manager space, and she sees all of my direct reports, and it's a toggle. She can go back to her self-service or manager space and see all of her direct reports. So they're not going to be jumbled. So this is really super exciting. I know a lot of people I've talked to always bring that question up. It allows your managers to be in control of who they assign to receive the proxy and when they want to turn it off, and gives all of that access without a lot of HR, IT people interference, exactly, needing to manage the process. Okay, take notes. So talked about that as sec in employee space. Really, you've got that in your employee space and your manager space or self-services. It allows you to take notes pretty much on anything or everything you want. It also allows you to either make it public, which means if my manager puts something in, my employee can see it and HR can see it. Or if I make it private, it's specifically for me as a manager to see on this employee. There's different types. So if I want to take a type note, maybe it's a performance note, maybe it is a grievance or employee relation, I can create different types of categories to group the notes for easy access and reporting. And then who the source is. And I think no, it's not on the next one. The source can be either the manager, it could be HR, or it can be the employee. And then you can attach any kind of documentation. So if there is some sort of written plan that needs to be attached, although you can, with the employee relations module, put 3-step plans or however many step plans together. And then if you need to link out to any kind of site for any reason on the notes, you can do that. Maybe they created a custom website and they want to put the URL for performance appraisals or whatever. Okay. Mentor space. We did have a slide here.
We did have a slide.
We did have a slide. So as a mentor, again, I don't have to be a manager. I could just be a mentor. I see a list. I go into my mentees. I see a list of who is assigned to me as a mentee, and I can see a lot of information. I can assign checklists to them. I can assign activities to them. I see a little bit of their work information. Again, through security, you can determine how much or which of these tabs are hidden or what a mentor can see.
S3 competencies in S3 versus GHR. In S3, we only had PA21 to hold job competencies. In talent management, you can hold competencies on the job, on the position, and on the resource. So that's great because at the job level, you might want to have a main competency that everybody needs to have. Everybody needs to know how to use a computer or something to that effect. And then lower at each position level, maybe the IT department needs to know how to use the fax machine as well or something. You can put these competencies high up at the job level and then more specific ones down at the position level. And then you can also track the resources competencies, knowledge and skills abilities too, to see how well they fit into those competencies and competency models that were placed on the jobs and positions.
And they start collecting those throughout their tenure at your organization. So
you can add more if you need to. And you can always change the way the competencies are set up on your jobs and positions as well. And then the reason this is, so it's great to track that period, but then it's also going to be needed for any of these extra modules that you want to add on. So for talent acquisition, if you're posting a job, you want to have all of those competencies, required education, skills posted with that job out into your candidate space. For goals and performances, you want to be able to set up these competency models to be able to track on the performance appraisals to see if these employees have achieved that or not. In succession, this is again where we talked about that fit analysis. If you want to see how well, if you want to do a modeling to see how well a candidate, an internal candidate or an employee would fit into this next position, you can do that and it'll actually give you a % fit for them there. But you need to have all the competencies built out.
And a roadmap of how long it might take them to develop to be in that position.
Yep, but you'll want to have all of them built out on both the position and on the resource record so that it can say, yes, no, they have this, they don't have this. And then lastly, the fit gap we talked about, that's where you would see in succession or in their current position. If I am a trained RN and I'm in a benefits manager position, probably have a huge fit gap there where I'd only have a certain percentage of the skills needed for the current position. Employee relations, this is the S3 side here, PA 59, you had your grievances and disciplinary actions. In global HR, you have a lot more available to you. So you can create a calendar. If your organization uses workdays to determine when responses are due for your grievances, you can set that calendar up to kind of set those dates up for when they need to have taken some sort of action or check back in on the employee to see if anything is kind of improved. You can create categories for different types of employee issues or grievances just to group them together. And again, anywhere that you can create a code in the system, you can create a category to track that. Sources, this is how you would set up your the way that you were told about the issue itself. So if another employee came to you and told you about an issue with another employee, or if a manager came to you and told you about it, or if someone from the outside, someone external, you could set up each one of those sources to track how you learned about this issue to begin with. Different discrimination types you can set up in the system as well. There are document templates. We talked about this in the performance and goals presentation. If you missed that, go over them again here. I don't know if we have a screenshot for you, but basically there are delivered document templates that you can use within the system to kind of create a document if you need to be able to give the employee kind of a plan for improvement, or you can set email, I don't think we have email, email templates on here. If you need to be able to send an email to the employee talking about how to improve upon what happened or to correct the issue, you can create these email templates that you can send out to the employee whenever, and you can get it set up to automatically go out whenever a grievance or an issue has been added. It can send to the employee, and you can use those variables to automatically pull the employee name, date, time, maybe the location if you need to specify that information. Take notes, just like Melissa just talked about, you can take notes pretty much anything. So if you want to give more specific information for yourself, for you to come back and review the issue, you can take notes.
Just like tracking it, we kind of talked the example of, somebody's late, you start seeing notice a pattern of lateness.
Yep.
So they use their little calendar and say, okay, employee came in at 45 minutes late. And then after a month, you see they've already been late over 8 hours. That's a full day that really could have been PTO
Right.
because they came in over an hour late or however many minutes late. You can keep tracking that before you start your employee relations disciplinary action issue.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say before and no, you're fine. You're fine. Before and after the situation has already been added to the system as well. Different coaching, you can take notes, or not take notes using that feature, but you can use the coaching feature to explain how you're going to bring the employee up to kind of improve their performance or to improve upon the issue. You can set up coaching to do that. You can define behaviors and desired behaviors. So again, kind of falls in line with the coaching to talk about what you want to be the case rather than what actually was the case. And then you can also set up consequences. So if none of this helped and you need to set up a consequence for the employee, you can track that and set that up in the employee relations tool as well.
Okay, I'm going to just go super brief over the next couple of slides because we're running low on time and I want to leave time for some questions. There is an occupational health module. For healthcare, this probably won't matter because you've got bigger, badder things that will take care of all of the employee tests and blood work and any kind of shots they have to take. But for other companies, this will let you track any of their drug tests, and if they need to get certain flu shots or if they have to travel overseas and get other shots. All of that can be tracked and notifications can go out when they need to get another shot or another blood test or drug test or whatever it may be. Again, health and safety, it was combined into both of those topics would be tracked by PA 90, so you didn't really get a lot of customized fields for each. You do in occupational health, and if we hit the next slide, safety management is also broken out to its own module. So there is a lot more reporting, a lot more areas for incidents to be tracked, data to be captured, and you can scan and attach documentations for any kind of risk management issues. Qualification fit. Is this mine? Yes. So Jackie was talking about it earlier. This gives you nice charting and graphs when you look at your employee as a manager to see where they fit in their current position. Same thing works on the succession management side. As an HR person, you can go in there and look and see what the qualifications are for your key positions. So this is a really nice analysis, graphical, and then bar chart, percentage-wise. You get a lot of information if you have all of the job set up and all of those qualifications also being tracked on the employee. Absence management. And we don't have a ton of time to go. Yeah, a ton of time to go through it. But you can grab this slide when we send it out or watch it over again. There's the big thing I really like on here is you can add a min-max for your daily hours. So say people, they usually can only take either 8 hours for PTO or maybe 4 hours. But if you say nobody can take any less than 4 hours, you can lock that down, and an employee can't put that in if they try. So a lot of times that happens and HR doesn't catch it. So that's a big thing. You can say, which days are eligible for PTO for places that have to work during holidays. Let's hit the next one. Leave requests. Now there's an actual system where you can ask for leave as an employee. Your manager can say, okay, I see you've asked for this leave, let me pass it on to HR. Before, everything was just kind of notify HR and HR runs with it. This gives notifications, email templates. HR still tracks everything in the system, but now employee can initiate that leave. Questions? So questions.
Great. So we do have a few questions, and since we're running here up against the hour, I just want to point out that if we don't get to your questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to do follow-ups, and as I pointed out earlier, we actually we have some sandboxes. We can help you dig into some things and look further and see what is a fit or what we might be looking at. So question here, next question. In reference to the proxy feature, would we use this for a vacancy situation, or would the vacant position upline manager be able to drill down into the vacant position's direct reports and perform actions without having to use the proxy feature?
Yes, it would be the direct upline. So even right now, direct upline can drill down into all of their managers' people and perform any actions. They most likely won't have the in basket for them yet, but you can change the notification to skip the manager and move directly to the upline while there is not a manager sitting in there, so that any in-basket issues would go directly. But yeah, that would be the best way to use it, not the proxy in this case.
Do we need to purchase employee relations module, or is it delivered with GHR?
It is delivered
all
with
comes
GHR.
together.
Yeah, out of the box. Everything we covered here is out of the box. And we kind of tried to make sure that we talked about when something was an ancillary talent management module.
Is the manager proxy new for version 11, or is it in version 10 GHR?
It's in 10. 10.2 is when the first time I played around with making it work. So
Can we get a copy of your presentation?
you
Yes.
sure can. So yes, we'll PDF this and we can send it out. And we'll also have this up on YouTube within about a week.
Week and a half.
Week and a half. If you want this presentation done for your organization, people who weren't able to make it today, just let us know. We can set up a WebEx. We can talk to you about what you'd like to see and concentrate on those topics more so than maybe just the whole presentation.
Okay, great. And so I'm going to move to start closing here since we're running out of time. I want to thank Melissa and Jackie. I hope all of you from your computers give them a little bit of a hand, because they're really good presenters. They do a great job with this. And in fact, very shortly, I'm going to start campaigning for another presentation. So if you get a survey from us, please give us some feedback. Tell us what you'd like to see. We'll be doing more webinars in August to September, and we can get some new content. They're really good at this. I think that we just need to give them other things to start presenting to you.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be GHR.
It doesn't have to be GHR. It can be S3. It could be employee self-service. Obviously, that's still what a large majority of our customers are on. I also want to point out that they're great representatives of RPI and our growing HCM team, which we had a lot of them actually down at the Southeast Mega. We have some really, really, really talented individuals. We're very fortunate to be assembling such a great team. So feel free to reach out. We hope to see you at Inforum. If you want to see some of these webinars, feel free to put them out on YouTube. And thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.